Hello, Bryan Beller. Welcome to the Hilton Suite here at NAMM 2015.
Oh, it's great to be here. I can feel the luxury.
And would you please introduce yourself to the webland out there?
Okay, citizens of the interwebs, my name is Bryan Beller. I'm the current bass player for a rock instrumental power trio called the Aristocrats, which is myself and Guthrie Govan on guitar and Marco Miniman on drums. I also play bass in Joe Satriani's band. We just recorded a new album and I've been touring with him for the last year and a half. That's my life right now, is these two things.
So going back to the beginning, how did it all start for you playing bass?
You know, I actually played piano first. I played classical piano for a while, and that was fun because, you know, it's a great interface for the entire musical range of notes. I used to sit around and play Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin songs on piano just for fun, you know, because I love doing that. And then I switched to acoustic. I picked up acoustic bass when I was 10 in the orchestra. When I was 13, I switched over to electric, and you know, I kind of got serious about it when I was 18. I went to Berklee College of Music and realized that I wasn't as good as I thought I was once I got to a place where everybody was really good. So then I practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. And then I came out of there and moved to LA and got a gig with Dweezil Zappa. That was my first gig. I was 22. And from there, I met a guy named Mike Keneally, who was in Dweezil Zappa's band and used to play guitar with Frank Zappa. And I've been playing with Mike for 20 years. I got to know Steve Vai through all that stuff, and I did some recording with him and orchestra gigs with him and then eventual touring with him. Somewhere along the line, through Mike Keneally, I met a guy named Brendan Small who started a band, I put band in quotes, called Death Clock, which is based on the television show Metalocalypse. So if you're hip to that, then you're laughing. If not, you don't know what I'm talking about because it's an American television show. But anyway, that was a metal thing that I've done. And then the Aristocrats I just talked about started in 2011, and I got into Joe Satriani's band in 2012. And along the way, I have written for Bass Player magazine and also worked at a bass amp company for a long time. So I have a special appreciation for the people who are on the other side of this camera right now.
Yeah, speaking of being in the music business, so how's that, what shall we say, an understanding that you have of the business now, that you are kind of a known musician?
Well, you know, one of the things working on in an actual, you know, music instrument company makes me appreciate. It's like, you know, this is a business. In the end of the day, everybody has to make money or it doesn't work. You know, the bands needed to make money in order to be able to tour. You know, if they don't have money, they can't pay their crew, they can't pay themselves, they can't go on tour. There's no music. If they don't have money, they can't buy instruments. You know, so it's all a virtuous cycle in a way. You know, if magazines don't if companies don't buy ad space in magazines, then magazines can't publish, you know, Guitar Player, Bass Player, Guitar World, whatever. So this is all a gigantic wheel in a way. And that was one of the things that I learned to appreciate when I was working on the other side of the glass, so to speak. So, you know, when we're doing our things with Joe Satriani and the Aristocrats and all that, it's great. I'm so grateful to be able to play with them musically and do what I'm able to do with them. But I'm always kind of like keeping an eye on the other side because that's what really has to work. And, you know, I'm sitting here talking to TC Electronic right now, and they have these great products. I use them. You know, I need them because there's sounds that I make with them and I want them on my pedal board so that I can go live and perform, and so that people who pay money to see it hear cool things and everybody walks away happy. I also want to be able to provide something for TC to be like, hey, look, I play TC Electronic pedals, you know? So it works as like a harmonic convergence of energy, if you want to look at it that way.
Speaking of pedals, which pedals do you have on your pedal board?
Yeah, I have the flashback, which is the delay, and I also have the Hall of Fame reverb. And I use the two of them in different instances. You know, the Hall of Fame I will use for solo moments with the Aristocrats. I like having a little bit of texture. Just even though sometimes you're in a hall and there's already texture, there's just something about the way the note feels when there's a little bit of reverb on it that just makes me feel more comfortable. It makes it feel a little bit smoother. As far as the flashback delay is concerned, and that's the pedal that we have hooked up here right now, I use that for a couple of things. I have a solo piece that I wrote around it, which kind of has like a very David Gilmour-y kind of delay, which the whole song is based around. So I have that. Without that, the pedal actually inspired me to write the song. So that doesn't happen every day. And then I always use that same setting in a solo moment in the Joe Satriani show where there's a very, very heavy texture going on and the whole band kind of stops and there's just hi-hat. And I have this very wide open kind of for lack of a better reference, you know, very kind of Justin Chancellor-y, Tool-ish kind of moment where the bass really reverberates in a delay pattern on and on and on and on and on. But what I have set right here, right now, is just a single slap delay, because there's a song in the Aristocrats catalog called Dance of the Aristocrats where it's a single slap, just one single repeat, you know, over and over again. And you could do all sorts of things like this. Kind of cute. I don't know why. It is. It's kind of like really adorable. You'd be like.
Speaking of Joe Satriani, how did you get the gig with him?
You know, again, it's all Mike Keneally. You know, Mike Keneally is an artist who is really, really an absolute genius. He writes very eclectic pop, rock, and instrumental music. His genre smorgasbord is kind of all over the place. You know, one album is acoustic, mellow. Next album is an orchestra, avant-garde thing. Next album is straight rock. Next album is really, really eclectic, kind of Zappa influenced stuff. So I've been musical partners with him for the next 20 years now. He introduced me to Brendan Small, which was the Death Clock gig, and he was already playing live with Joe Satriani as his keyboard player when Joe decided he wanted to make a change on bass and drums. And he said, "Who do you know?" And he said, "Well, I got this bass player, Bryan Beller, that I've been playing with for 20 years. How about him?" And fortunately, Joe trusted Mike, and I just showed up, and you know, we rehearsed 4 times, and then we were on tour for a year and a half. You know, Joe does not believe in like over rehearsing, which is cool. It kept everything fresh. You know.
Yeah. Cool. But thanks so much for taking your time to come here.
Oh, thank you for having me. You know, the whole tone print thing, I mean, for just a little moment on that, you know, for someone who's as super, super particular as I am when I'm putting pedals on or off my pedal board, I really spend hours and hours testing these things, which is kind of a habit I picked up from working at a music amplifier company. And the fact that I can really just go as deep as I possibly want to into these things, get settings to like the ultimate micromatic, you know, measure of adjustment, and then bring them into the live environment, because it's one thing to do it by yourself, it's another thing to like use them with like really, really loud drums and kick drums and hi-hats and guitars raging all around you. If a effect works for bass and keeps the fundamental intact and still does what the effect is intended to do while it's in the environment of a live, you know, 120 decibel show, then you know that you've got a pedal that works, and that's what the Flashback does for me.